and we're here today on the third episode of Against the Ropes. We're here to discuss the invasion angle. It was a very infamous angle. Um, a lot of fans didn't like it. I did. I thought it was very creative, but apparently there's a little bit of a backstory. So, resident of Collinwood is going to take the lead because I didn't start watching WWE back then, known as WWF, until around 1999. So, resident of Collinwood is going to take the lead. Resident of Collinwood, first of all, before we begin, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. So you can take the lead and let us know what you wanted to talk about a little bit before we get into the invasion angle specifically.
Well, prior to 2001, we really have to go back to the late 80s when Ted Turner and Time Warner Cable bought WCW, at that time NWA, and they had made it into WCW. And Ted Turner did this for one reason, to compete with Vince McMahon. And he really wanted to compete with Vince because Vince had did something known as, well, in the wrestling community, as Black Saturday. And what happened was in 1984, Vince McMahon had bought time for his show on TBS, but Vince McMahon only wanted his show shown. Ted Turner didn't want that. He wanted other wrestling products shown. And, well, Vince gave Ted Turner and Time Warner an ultimatum. Either you pick me or I'll leave. And he left, and obviously, well, it didn't sit well with Ted Turner. So after that, you have, in the late 80s, you have Ted Turner buying NWA, which became WCW. That's what he chose as a name. And in 1991, he hires Eric Bischoff, not as a producer at the time, but Eric Bischoff became the producer in 1994. Now, the first thing Eric Bischoff does is he starts cutting cost. They start filming down in Orlando. They cut down the house shows because house shows were losing their money for WCW. And what happens is Bischoff signs Hulk Hogan. And you might say, well, why didn't Hogan stick with WWF? Well, there's two reasons. Number one, the whole steroid scandal with the steroid trial that WWF was going through. And number two, Eric Bischoff had offered something Hulk Hogan never got from Vince. And that was, the final say in his match is basically what you might want to say is total control. He had final say in all his matches, all his outcomes. That's what Eric Bischoff offered Hogan to get him to come to World Championship Wrestling, otherwise known as WCW. Flash forward 2 years later, the NWO is formed. And the rest is history.
As I pointed out in some of my videos, I watched it here and there. I think it might have been WCW or it might have been WWE, but not really sure which. But I do remember watching it on Saturdays. And so that might have been WCW. I don't remember whether it was WCW or WWE. But I came in later in 99, and I think one of the very first words that I heard The Rock say was "calm down, jabroni." I think that's what I heard him say. I think that was one of his first words, and this was when he was transitioning. I think he was going into being a baby face. This was like March or April of 99 when he was about to turn face. and I watched it one time in 1999. I watched it at my grandmother's house, and we watched it in April of '99 during Easter break of '99. And I watched it that one time and didn't watch it anymore. So, interestingly enough, I went to summer camp that same year in June of '99, and the camp counselor there, he liked The Rock. I think that was his favorite wrestler, or one of his favorite wrestlers, and he would always quote The Rock, and I knew who The Rock was. Don't get it twisted. Like, I knew who he was. I just wasn't watching it. I had watched him one time, and I just never forgot him. Not counting the time I heard him say, "Calm down, jabroni," because when he said that, I didn't even watch. I just turned it. I turned the station. And then in June, not June, excuse me, but in April of '99, then I watched him on Raw. Fast forward to 2001. What basically happened, from my recollection, is that I do remember something about Vince, or Vince uttering something about WCW, and that Shane, and then Shane, he comes up there and he says, I brought WCW. I don't remember too much about it, and so then we get to June, and everything's still going. Stone Cold Steve Austin is the heel, if I'm not mistaken, and so then I saw Booker T, and I'm like, well, what the hell is going on here? Because I knew who Booker was, and then when for one thing, let me say this real quick. I do remember, they say that when something significant happens in your life, you remember where you were. And that definitely happened for me, because when Stone Cold did what he did and turned heel in April of '01, I mean, I remember what I was doing. I remember what I was eating. I remember all of those things. And I just couldn't believe it. I was so shocked. And so by June of 2001, um, Austin, he was the heel, and then Booker T comes in, and he's talking all this trash, talking about, you call yourself Stone Cold Steve Austin, and they had presented Booker as a face, as you know, and Stone Cold was the heel. So then by July 9th, 2001, I just see a bunch of people in the ring beating the hell out of each other. And I'll be honest with you, resident of Collinwood, I was confused. I didn't know what was going on. I did not have the internet, and I'm not ashamed to say that. I grew up poor, and we didn't have the internet. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I didn't know anything about an alliance. They just said that, remember the date, Monday, July 9, 2001. And they said that things were about to change, and I didn't know what was going on, but I liked the angle. So give me your thoughts on the angle, the beginning stages of it.
The beginning stages are exactly what you said. Shane McMahon showing up on the last episode of Monday Night Nitro, and he shocks his father. This is how they wrote it out, because Vince had bought WCW. I mean, he had bought his competition, his competitor. And Shane McMahon comes in the ring, and he tells Vince, well, the last name on the contract does say McMahon, but it doesn't say Vince McMahon. It says Shane McMahon. And I love it. I love the heat between father and son. I always felt Shane was as good as his dad on promos. I mean, from a promo standpoint, is Vince the best? Yes. But right behind him is his son. And that's where, to me, the invasion angle really started, with this storyline that they were running, that Shane was the one that bought it, not Vince.
Yeah. Like I said, I was just confused, and I feel really bad as a fan because I didn't know what was going on because I was so unaware of what was going on. But again, we did not have the internet, so I had no way of getting a source to tell me what was going on at that time. And I just saw a bunch of people in the ring beating the crap out of each other, and I couldn't understand why. Um, I soon learned that WCW was trying to essentially, I'm speaking in kayfabe, of course, but they were trying to essentially hijack WWE. I mean, isn't that basically what it was?
Yeah, what it was WCW and ECW had formed an alliance.
Mm-hmm.
Stephanie was like the co-partner of Shane, and they were trying to come together to fight the corporate monster that was WWE, or do a hostile takeover, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. So, like I said, Austin was the big gun. Um, Rock was gone, and I just remember when I watched it, they brought WCW in, and I said to myself, I said, this is boring because I didn't know those WCW guys, and when they had Austin there as the heel, they had The Undertaker trying basically to take Rock's place, and it just wasn't working. They tried with Chris Benoit, and it didn't work. They tried Chris Jericho, it didn't work. It just wasn't working. As you know, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. Um, they tried it with the Hardy Boys, and it wasn't working. And then Triple H, as you know, he tore his quad, I think,
Yeah.
and then that just made a bad situation worse because Triple H tore his knee and Rock was gone. So if you got Triple H and Rock gone, it's like, well, then what the hell do you do? You know what I mean? And then to make matters worse, Benoit got injured. Did he not? I mean, he got injured in the summer of '01, didn't he? Because he wasn't there when The Rock got back.
Yeah, I believe you're right. I believe Benoit did get injured. And keep in mind too, when the group the Radicals came over, Eddie Guerrero, Perry Saturn, Dean Malenko, and Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero had gotten injured in a match.
Oh wow, yeah. See, this is what I'm saying. So he wasn't there either. You've got all these people missing. You've got Eddie missing, Benoit missing, Triple H missing, and Rock missing. And then you've got Stone Cold as the heel. So there was really nobody to stand up for us. And when I say us, I mean the fans. Um, because you know the fans generally root for the good guy. So there was nobody to do that with that angle. So I remember thinking as a fan, I was like, man, I hope The Rock comes back soon. And he had did a special on biography called Diary of The Rock. You might be able to get that on YouTube. But he did a special that let us know he was coming back. And, then he did all these promos, letting us know that he was coming back. He was shooting the Scorpion King at the time. And he let us know he was coming back. And I just couldn't wait for him to come back. And when he got back, man, it was white hot, as they say. It was good as hell. I enjoyed it. Um, I enjoyed the thing with Booker T. I enjoyed Kurt Angle, uh, kayfabe kidnapping Steve Austin. It was all great. What are some of your moments that you liked?
I like the fact that they had Steve Austin turn on WWE and join WCW because I grew up watching the NWA, WWF, and WCW, and I remember stunning Steve Austin in WCW, teaming with Brian Pillman, and they were called the Hollywood Blondes. And I also remember Steve Austin being in the Dangerous Alliance with Rick Rude and Paul Heyman in the early 90s. I remember him from WCW, but where Steve Austin became a star was WWF, no question.
Yes.
I just feel if you really want to look at the history of WCW, mismanagement of talent, like what's going on with WWE now, was a lot of the reason, they were behind. And so you look at this invasion angle. When I saw Steve Austin do the turn, I wasn't shocked because it's like, well, okay, he started with WCW. That made sense to me. The only thing I didn't like is I felt they didn't have enough of what was the core of WCW. They had, to me, Tommy Dreamer. I think they even had like some ECW originals. But to me, when I think of WCW, like who was the core, I go back to Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen. I go back to when my grandfather said, "You know what these four fingers stand for?" And I said, "No." He goes, "It stands for the Four Horsemen." And he turned on NWA, and he said, he goes, "And you woo like Ric Flair." And I remember Sting. Sting to me was the franchise. He was the end all to be all for WCW. I remember the Steiner brothers. They were what was the core group of WCW. I'm not taking anything away from Booker T or stunning Steve Austin, but when I think of WCW and NWA, that's what I thought of.
Yeah, and I can understand that totally. I think what they should have done with the Alliance, if The Rock couldn't be there, and I told you I was going to talk about this with you when we did the Alliance episode, aka the Invasion episode. Since Rock couldn't be there because of Scorpion King, what they should have done was kept Austin face. Or what they could have done is they could have done it like this. Okay, he turned heel in April of 01. So what they should have done was they should have turned him heel they should have turned him face when the Alliance got there, and he could have taken over for Rock until Rock got back. Like maybe, he was trying to fight the Alliance all by himself. And maybe they could have done something where it was Stone Cold and The Rock versus the Alliance. Like, I thought that would have been cool. Like, maybe every week Stone Cold and The Rock try to come up with a plan to get rid of the Alliance. I think maybe that's what they should have done. What do you think they should have done with the storyline, or do you like it exactly the way it was?
No, I don't like it exactly the way it was. They had Diamond Dallas Page feud with the wrong person. Diamond Dallas Page should have not have feuded with The Undertaker. He should have feuded with Stone Cold Steve Austin. There's your face and heel. Or better yet, here's this guy, Diamond Dallas Page, who has one of the most innovative moves, the Diamond Cutter, that can be hit from anywhere. And he literally was a face of WCW. He should have been leading that charge since they didn't have a Ric Flair, since they didn't have a Sting. Him and Booker T should have been leading that charge. And it should have been Page, Diamond Cutting, Steve Austin. And there's your feud. The Undertaker was the wrong pick for Page, in my opinion.
And I don't mean to interrupt. I just want to say, again, it was because they needed somebody to take Rock's place.
Yeah.
because, as you know, Rock was gone. And don't get me wrong, Undertaker was my favorite when Rock left. And I'm not trying to disrespect Undertaker. I would love to get Undertaker on. And I'm going to tell you this straight up. If I can get Undertaker on, I'm bringing you on and we're going to make that part of Against the Ropes. I would love to get him on here. But with all due respect to Mark Calloway, he just wasn't the right guy to substitute for Dwayne. He just wasn't. Like, why not pick the next best guy, Steve Austin? Doesn't that make better sense to pick Steve Austin if Dwayne can't be there?
It does. And here's the thing. I think they were leaning on people remembering Steve Austin in WCW the way I did. And I think that's a bit of a problem when you have the Undertaker, who's really good, but then you're taking Undertaker. And look, I love Diamond Dallas Page. I remember him in WCW when he had all those gimmicks prior to him becoming what he became. Page, when he became Diamond Dallas Page, was charismatic. And that's what Diamond Dallas Page and The Rock are almost mirror images of each other from a charisma standpoint. So if I'm putting Page with somebody, I want Page with somebody who he can be charismatic against. And to me, look, Shawn Michaels was charismatic against The Undertaker, but that's Shawn Michaels. There's a difference between one person or the other. I've said this before, and I'm not trying to repeat myself. I would have preferred Page against keep Austin face, like you said, and have Page Diamond cut Austin. If they wanted to turn somebody, if they really wanted to reach and turn somebody from the old WCW days heel who was in WWF, well, Mark Calloway was once managed by Paul Heyman in
There you
WCW.
go. I was going to say that. I don't mean to interrupt. I'm just so excited. But they could have, bro. I was thinking the same thing. Why not turn Taker heel? And then, like you said, when they did the thing with Taker and Page, why not make it Austin instead of Taker? Have him stalk Steve Austin and stalk Steve Austin's wife. Like, it would have been better like that. Don't have her. Steve Austin's wife was in the kitchen making cookies. Like, what is this? And then he's eating the cookies and he's like, oh, these cookies are nasty. Oh, these cookies suck. It's like, so Stone Cold Steve Austin has been reduced to eating cookies. Seriously? They should have kept him face, had him fight Paige, had Paige stalk Deborah, and I think that would have been better. And then when The Rock got back, maybe Austin could have said, yo, man, some things have been going down since you've been gone. And then The Rock could have been like, yeah, The Rock heard about what's been going on. You know how he talks about himself in the third person?
Yeah.
And they could have found a way to get rid of these people. What do you think about that?
I think if they would have had Austin and Page, okay, the best thing they could have did with this would have been Stone Cold should have resented not wanting to fight necessarily. It's not that he didn't want to fight for WWF. It's he didn't want to fight for Vince McMahon because him and McMahon always had heat. And he should have told Vince this as a character, like, I don't want to fight for you because I hate your guts too. And what causes Austin to start fighting for WWF is Austin's in a bar drinking and Page just drops him out of nowhere. Diamond cuts him right in the middle of the bar and leaves him laying. And that is what gets Austin to fight.
Yeah. Or like I said, maybe he said something about Deborah. Maybe maybe he said he made an inappropriate comment about Deborah. Oh, your wife looks really hot. Um, I can see your wife, or maybe I'm looking at your wife, or what have you. And there's your feud. I
Yeah.
mean, like you said, maybe Austin's in the bar, and Paige just drops him out of nowhere. I mean, I don't know, man. Again, nothing against Mark. I love Mark Calloway. Like, you don't know, bro. I want to freaking meet him and get him on here. But he just wasn't the guy to do that. Mark Calloway is not really a good talker. I mean, he's okay as a heel, but just think about it like this. Stone Cold is a good talker and he's a good character. Why not keep him face? We keep going back to this same thing. He had it all, but what did they do? They turned him heel. And for what? Because by June the fans were back on his side again. As you know, you've seen the story.
Yeah.
Sure, they hated him at first, but remember it said that they got behind him again, even though he was a heel. So I don't know, man. Those are my thoughts on the invasion angle. I liked it. A lot of people hated it. I didn't. I just thought, and I'll reiterate one last time, and I'm going to let you close it out. But I just thought maybe he could have stayed face. Rock comes in and he tells Rock what's going on. Like you said, Austin tells Vince, I hate your guts. I really don't give two shits about you. But since DDP made this personal, I'll fight for WWE. That's the way it should have been. Your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, I agree. I think there was room for improvement with it. Was it bad? No, it wasn't. It wasn't to the point of awful. It was really watchable and enjoyable because being a WCW fan, I knew the history of why Ted Turner had bought WCW. I had known that watching WCW and WWF growing up, that they're behind the scenes Turner wants to take Vince down. And when I'm watching this invasion angle, because Vince buys WCW and they're running the Shane and Stephanie storyline, I'm enjoying it, but there's things I would have wanted to see. The main thing I would have wanted to see, and I know this is going to sound old, again, my favorite group was the Four Horsemen: Flair, Arn, Ole, and Tully. And there were many iterations of the Horsemen. Hell, Vader was in the Horsemen. Sid Justice was in the Horsemen. Barry Windham was in the Horsemen. Hell, one point in time, Sting was in the Four Horsemen. And I would have wanted to see Ric Flair, and Chris Benoit, by the way, was in the Horsemen too. I would have wanted to see Flair and Benoit sort of form the Horsemen in the invasion angle and jump Austin even, or jump Taker. They could have done that really easily.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because Benoit, as you know, he had broken his neck in 2001.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, man. Like I said, it's nothing against Calloway, man. The guy is great, but like he's not the guy to go against, the Alliance and like that. It's just no, don't do that. It's just not the right guy. If you're going to do it, they should have let Austin do it. And maybe he could have worked with Austin until Rock got back. That's what I would have done. I love the invasion angle. So did Resident of Collinwood. We just had our little nitpicks with it, but overall, we loved it. Very creative. And Resident of Collinwood, I want to thank you once again for being on here and for being so kind to me because I really didn't know shit about what was going on earlier. So I want to thank you for helping me out here.
Hey man, when I listen to your channel, I always learn something new about the Halloween franchise. So, I mean, you don't know unless if you don't know, there's always ways to find out, and it's always important to learn something new.
Yeah, because like I said, I didn't even know what was going on. They said July 9th was when it officially started, and I didn't have a computer in my house. I don't know if you did, but we didn't. We, we didn't even have cable. A friend of mine taped it for me every week. That's how I got to see it. Raw came on. What is it called? TNN or not TNN? Excuse me. Because they left TNN in 2000. Raw. No, wait, it was TNN. Okay, because it was USA before. All right, let me get it right. They were on TNN. Now Spike TV, and I didn't have cable, so a friend of mine taped it for me. SmackDown was on UPN. Are you aware of UPN? Do you know about that? Yeah. Okay, so SmackDown was on UPN, and so I got to watch SmackDown every Thursday night because that was just a regular channel. But I could not watch Raw, unless the friend brought the tape over every week, which he did. Anyways, it was great being on here for episode 3. You guys let us know what you think of the invasion angle. We liked it overall. Is that fair to say, Resident of Collinwood, that you liked the invasion angle?
I did like it. I liked the way they started it. I wish they would have tried to continue it, sort of expand it a little more, because I think you could have done that. I think you could have expanded it and got other players involved, because I think, again, they didn't want to. Sting was still under contract to Time Warner. Goldberg was still under contract from Time Warner. And I think that when you don't have, again, I love Booker T. I love Steve Austin. But again, I think having that big time name would have helped them with this storyline.
Yeah, and 2001 was the last good year for me. Do you have one, or do you feel that it's still watchable?
I like 2001. To me, the best era for me in wrestling was when Nitro and Raw were going head to head.
Yeah, I agree with that.
To me, when
go ahead, Rita.
When Raw and Nitro were going head to head, and it was the formation of the NWO at Bash at the Beach. I remember watching that pay-per-view at my grandparents' house, and my grandmother calling Hogan a son of a bitch. And I'll never forget that.
It was really good, man. I enjoyed it. I don't know. A lot of people said they were tired of it, so Vince ended it. I'm trying to think. Was I tired of it back then? Not really. Again, I want to say this one more time before we close out. And guys, you've been listening to episode 3 of Against the Ropes. We've been discussing the invasion angle. Love it or hate it, it definitely has its place in sports entertainment history. I liked it. A lot of people hated it. I did not. I'm sorry, bro. I just didn't hate it. I didn't. Your final thoughts?
No, I didn't hate it either. I liked some of the things they did. I liked the ECW mixing with WCW. It filled out their roster nicely. I do wish they would have had different stars feud with each other, like I mentioned, or like we've both mentioned. But other than that, I did like it. I liked what they did with it. I wish it would have lasted a bit longer because, again, I grew up on NWA, WWF, WCW. Again, I was a nerd as a kid. So.
Hmm. I think maybe one of the next things we could do is the dreaded draft and brand split of 2002. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, but I don't get fan logic here. You hate the Alliance, but you love the draft. What? What? Like you hate the Alliance, but you love the ruthless aggression era, huh? I don't know, but anyway, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Um, Thank you for taking the time to promote these episodes on your Twitter account. And we'll be back for the next episode, which is the draft and the brand split. Thank you again, resident of Collinwood.
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure.
All right, I'm the Myers fan, and thank you guys for listening to our show.